Thugs attacked a female cop behind the gas station. Then the Hells Angels did the unthinkable. It was almost midnight when Officer Rachel Mayers pulled her cruiser behind the old gas station off Route 16, her headlights slicing through the cold mist that clung to the edges of the dark highway. She wasn't supposed to stop here, not alone, not this late, but she had been tracking a stolen pickup for hours, and the blinking taillights she followed had led her here. The area was dead silent, except for the hum of flickering fluorescent lights above the station's broken sign. Her radio crackled faintly with static before cutting off completely. Then she heard it, footsteps behind the dumpsters, muffled laughter, and the sharp metallic clink of a chain being dragged across the ground. If you believe that kindness, courage, and second chances still matter in this world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to K&H Stories. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories to life. Rachel's heart raced, but she kept her hand steady on her flashlight. The beam sliced through the dark, catching 3 figures stepping out from behind the trash bins. Their faces were half covered with scarves, their jackets tattered, eyes glinting with the kind of anger that had no purpose but destruction. One of them smirked, tapping a metal pipe against his palm. "What's a cop doing all alone out here?" he sneered. Rachel's instincts screamed for backup, but her radio was dead, no signal, no hope of quick help. She straightened her posture anyway, voice firm though her throat burned with fear. She had faced danger before, but this felt different. This was personal. The men circled her, their laughter echoing in the empty lot. One lunged first, shoving her hard against the hood of her cruiser. Her head hit the metal with a dull thud, stars exploding in her vision. But Rachel wasn't one to break easily. She fought back, landing a solid punch on one attacker's jaw, sending him sprawling. Another swung his pipe, grazing her shoulder, pain slicing through her arm like fire. She stumbled, clutching her side, breath ragged. It was 3 against 1, and the odds were merciless. Still, she refused to give up. She drew her baton, ready to face them all, until one grabbed her from behind, dragging her toward the darkness behind the station. That was when the deep, rumbling growl of motorcycle engines shattered the night. Headlights flared across the cracked pavement, cutting through the fog like fire. The thugs froze, looking toward the sound, 6 roaring bikes tearing down the highway, the kind of sound that made the ground tremble. The Hells Angels had arrived. Rachel had heard stories about them, the notorious motorcycle club, feared and misunderstood by many. But tonight, they weren't riding for trouble. They had seen the commotion from the highway, the flash of a police light, the signs of a struggle. Without a second thought, they turned their bikes toward the danger. The first biker jumped off his Harley before it even stopped rolling. His jacket was worn leather, the red and white patch gleaming under the moonlight. His name was Hank Razor Carter, a man in his late 40s, rough around the edges but with a gaze sharp enough to cut through lies. He didn't say a word he didn't need to. His presence alone made the attackers hesitate. Then in a blur of motion, Razor swung a chain he'd been carrying, striking one thug's arm and sending the metal pipe flying. The others tried to run, but the rest of the Angels had already surrounded them, their engines still roaring like thunder. Rachel collapsed to her knees, the adrenaline draining from her body. Razor approached her slowly, his voice gravelly but steady. "You okay, officer?" he asked, offering a gloved hand. Rachel hesitated for a second. Years of training told her to be cautious, but the look in his eyes wasn't threatening. It was human. She took his hand, gripping it tightly as he pulled her to her feet. The attackers were pinned, trembling as the bikers stood guard. Razor looked at them, disgust flickering across his face. "Picking on a woman alone, a cop," he muttered. "You got no honor." By the time the local sheriff's units arrived, the Hells Angels had already tied the thugs with their own chains and left them kneeling in the dirt. But they didn't leave immediately. Razor noticed Rachel struggling to steady her hands as she tried to radio dispatch. Her voice cracked when she gave her badge number. She'd been tough through it all, but now, under the flashing red and blue lights, the weight of everything hit her. Razor handed her a bottle of water and leaned against his bike. "You did good," he said quietly. You stood your ground. In the weeks that followed, the story spread through the town like wildfire. Bikers save female officer, the headlines read. Some called it unbelievable, others called it poetic justice. But what most people didn't know was what happened after the night behind the gas station. Rachel was placed on leave to recover from her injuries. She tried to rest, but the nightmares wouldn't stop. The sound of footsteps behind her, the feeling of helplessness, it haunted her. She began questioning herself, her job, even her purpose. She had always believed she could protect others, but that night had shown her how fragile courage could feel when you're alone. Then one afternoon, as she sat by her apartment window staring at the rain, she heard the distant rumble of motorcycles again. Her heart skipped, not from fear this time, but something else. When she looked outside, she saw Razor standing by his bike, holding something wrapped in cloth. He didn't stay long, he just nodded and left the package at her doorstep. Inside was a leather jacket with the Hells Angels emblem stitched on the back, but instead of member, it read honorary. Attached was a note, "For the one who fought alone and never backed down, you earned our respect, ride strong." Tears filled her eyes as she traced the stitching with her fingers. For the first time in weeks, she felt seen. Underneath the hard shells of those men, she had found something rare, a brotherhood built not just on rebellion, but on loyalty, protection, and heart. Months passed, and Rachel returned to duty, stronger than ever. She volunteered to mentor new recruits, especially young women who doubted themselves. Her story became one she shared quietly, not to boast, but to remind others that heroes sometimes wear leather instead of badges, and sometimes the lines between outlaws and saviors aren't as clear as we think. One evening, while patrolling the same route near the gas station, Rachel saw a group of bikers parked by the side of the road. She recognized the symbol instantly. Razor stepped forward, smiling faintly beneath his beard. "Still watching over this town, huh?" he said. She smiled back, voice steady. "Guess I'm not the only one." They didn't need many words. The respect between them spoke louder than any conversation could. As the bikers rode off into the twilight, their engines fading into the distance, Rachel stood by her cruiser, wind brushing her hair, and whispered to herself, "Sometimes angels wear leather." If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to K&H Stories. Your support helps us continue telling powerful stories about real courage, kindness, and unexpected heroes. Before you go, let us know in the comments, do you believe that kindness can come from the most unexpected places? Because sometimes, it's not the badge or the title that makes someone a hero, it's the choice to stand up when no one else will.